You're at home, your phone lights up, and it's the name of someone you love. Someone who shouldn't be calling you. Someone who can't be calling you. You swipe to answer, but all you hear is static, maybe faint breathing. You try calling back. No one answers. And then, hours later, you receive another call, and another, and another. Now, imagine the police telling you this. The person died on impact. They couldn't have made a single call. This isn't an urban legend, a creepypasta, or a screenplay for a horror movie. This happened. It was documented. And to this day, no one has been able to explain it. Tonight, on Bizarre Files, we dive into the real case of Charles Peck, the man who made 35 phone calls after he died. On September 12, 2008, a Metrolink commuter train in California collided head-on with a freight locomotive. The crash was catastrophic. 25 people died. More than 130 were injured, and rescuers described the impact as one of the worst rail disasters in U.S. history. One of the passengers aboard the train was Charles Peck, a 49-year-old man traveling to Los Angeles for a job interview that could have changed his life. His family was waiting to hear from him, excited, proud, hopeful. But the call they ultimately received was nothing they could have prepared for. Because after the crash, after the official coroner later confirmed that Peck died on impact, his phone began calling people. Not once, not twice, but dozens of times. And these weren't ghostly numbers or random glitches. They were calls directly to his fiancée, his parents, his siblings, and even his son. Every person who loved him received a call from a man who was already gone. The first call came to his fiancée, Andrea. Her phone rang. She saw Charles's name. She answered immediately. Silence. Not total silence, something more unsettling. A quiet hiss like static, maybe the faintest trace of breathing, but no words, no voice. She hung up and tried calling back. No response. Minutes later, Charles's son received a call. Same thing. Then his brother. Then his parents. Over the next 12 hours, the phone rang 35 times. This wasn't a one-off glitch. This was coordinated, targeted, personal. Every time a family member answered, they got the same eerie non-message. Every time they called back, it went straight to voicemail. Rescuers on site began to take the calls seriously. The family reported them, and rescue teams used the phone signal to try and locate Charles inside the wreckage. The calls continued, hour after hour, giving the rescuers hope that he was alive somewhere, trapped, in need of help. The rescuers searched desperately. His family stayed awake, praying that the calls meant he had survived the collision. But when they finally located his body, they made a heartbreaking discovery. Charles Peck was already dead. In fact, medical examiners determined he had died instantly, at the very moment of the crash. No suffering, no lingering for hours, no time to attempt to call anyone. But then, what about the calls? His phone was never recovered, only his body. So the question echoes, louder and louder. Who, or what, was using his phone to call his family for 12 hours after he died? Investigators proposed the usual explanations. Network glitches, call echoes, delayed tower signals. All the technical jargon that attempts to put a cold, logical blanket over something that feels deeply unnatural. But even the experts had problems explaining it. 1. Glitches don't choose specific contacts. They don't cycle through a person's closest family members. 2. Glitches don't occur 35 times over 12 hours. Not in a consistent, repeated pattern. 3. Glitches don't stop abruptly at the exact moment the body is discovered, because that's what happened. The calls ended the moment rescuers located him in the wreckage. Investigators also noted something even stranger. Not one of the calls ever connected to a voicemail recording from Charles, meaning the phone wasn't just redialing an old message or sending a corrupted packet. The phone was actively dialing, initiating fresh calls each time. But here's the detail that chills nearly everyone who hears the story. The crash mangled bodies, metal, and electronics beyond recognition. Yet somehow, Charles's phone appeared to function long after impact, except, again, the phone itself was never found. The wreckage was torn apart piece by piece. Seats, metal, luggage, personal items, most were recovered, but not the device that placed 35 calls. To this day, there is no physical explanation for why the phone rang or where it ended up. His family believes the calls were not supernatural in the sense of horror, but rather hopeful. A final message, even if nonverbal. A sign he wanted them to know he was thinking of them, reaching out one last time. But others argue something darker. Some think the calls were the result of energy remaining imprinted in a device at death, an echo of consciousness. Some think it was a classic crisis apparition, but transmitted digitally. Some believe the calls were a mechanical impossibility, and therefore cannot be explained by technology alone. And then there are those who point out the eerie timing. Why did the calls stop exactly when his body was found? Not before, not after, not gradually, instantly, as if someone or something realized its task was complete. Was it coincidence or intentional? To psychologists who study grief, the calls represent a profoundly emotional paradox, a moment where hope and horror sit side by side, where the mind desperately tries to interpret a message from beyond the line. But even they admit, this case defies the known boundaries of human perception. Let's strip the story down to cold, factual pieces. A man dies instantly in a mass casualty train collision. Hours later, his phone begins calling every person who loves him most. No voice, just static. Signals strong enough for rescuers to triangulate the source. No physical phone ever recovered. Calls stop the moment his body is found. You can explain away one detail, maybe even two, but all of them together? That's where the story becomes something else entirely. A technological glitch shouldn't show emotional intelligence. It shouldn't behave like a goodbye. It shouldn't align with timing that feels purposeful. So we're left with two possibilities. Either the universe occasionally bends its own rules, or there are rules we simply do not understand yet. And maybe, just maybe, Charles Peck used one of them. Years have passed, and still the phone calls remain one of the most documented and baffling post-mortem communication cases in modern history. Experts debate it. Skeptics argue it. Families who've experienced similar things whisper it. But the truth is this: no one has ever solved the mystery of how a dead man kept calling the living. Whether you interpret it as a glitch in the network, a last burst of consciousness, or a message sent across a boundary we cannot yet define, the case of Charles Peck forces us to question the limits of life, death, and technology. Phones aren't supposed to call from the other side. But in 2008, one did. So, here's the question I leave you with. If someone you loved called you hours after they died, would you answer? And what would you expect to hear on the other side of the line? Let me know in the comments. This has been Bizarre Files, and tonight, You saw just how thin the line between worlds can be.